Welcome to the Nick and Nick podcast. This podcast is powered by Royalty Roofing and Renovations. Crown your home and your commercial property with royalty. Thanks for joining us today on the podcast. Looking forward to introducing you to our special guest, none other than Drew Metzler, State Farm agent here in Omaha, Nebraska. So, Drew, thanks for coming. Thanks for joining us on the show.
Thanks for having me. Excited.
And like a good neighbor, Drew is. I wanted to say, here comes the Drew. Y'all ain't really ready for. I'll give you a better intro or walk-up song next time. But,
no, for sure.
But yeah, thanks for joining us today on the podcast. Looking forward to getting your perspective on, you personally as well as professionally in the insurance industry. Yeah. The guys, the sales director and the sales representatives here talk very highly about you and say, you got to get this guy on the podcast so he can educate us on the insurance industry and, kind of just show us around how the game's played from an insurance perspective. But before we do that,
for sure.
First of all, thank you for being here.
Absolutely.
Taking time. And it's 5 o'clock. I mean, you probably had to fight some traffic to be here.
Well, the wife's not thrilled, but I told her we had something set on the books.
So we'll hurry. What's her name?
Stephanie.
We'll hurry. Stephanie. But you got 3 little kids, right?
3 little kids, 9, 6, and 4.
Okay. So. Well, good. Let's start off with we call it a short segment on the spot. This is kind of a fun way for our viewers to get to know you personally, before we get to know you professionally and what you do at State Farm. But on the spot, we want to let's first talk about either or.
Okay.
You pick either or. Let's go with I seen you drive in. I was going to go Chevy or Ford. What's a GMC?
Yeah, that's a GM brand. Yeah, that's a
Chevy.
Yep,
okay, that counts. Let's go. And we've already had a conversation about this. Let's go podcast or book. Where do you get most of your information from nowadays?
Podcast. I feel like just consuming material is a lot easier for me to listen to it from an audio standpoint.
Right.
And I kind of have a little guilty pleasure of listening to some podcasts on my way to and from work.
Sure. Give me some of your favorites.
Hands down, Craig Rochelle's leadership podcast.
Mm-hmm.
I think that is it's just rich with so many other, not just his material, but he synthesizes material so well. And then the people that he has on there are obviously very renowned and very respected. So big with that. And then I also really enjoy just YouTube.
Yeah.
YouTube, you can just quick jump on. It's kind of crazy how the algorithms kind of know what you like. And,
right.
It's definitely one of those things where you can kind of gather the right amount of material without getting too much into it.
Sure. I'm more of a book guy.
Yeah.
I'm starting to develop my sense of podcasting and listening. But for example, when I'm at the gym or, I like to be engaged in my surroundings. So are you plugged up guy or unplugged when you're at the gym? It looks like you work out, obviously.
Yeah, no. So I gotta plug up. Man.
Okay.
I need something to be jamming to.
Okay.
But yeah, especially if I'm just doing like a hike or something, it's nice to just kind of throw in something that you can listen to.
While you're on that, that was one of my next ones. So I know you played football at UNO, right?
Yep.
This had to be right before, because you're only 38. This had to be right before they discontinued the.
Correct.
Did Trev do that, or was that before Trev?
Yeah, so that was Trev, which then obviously, a lot of people had different feelings about it.
Right, especially the wrestlers, right?
Yeah, the wrestlers, they had a great program. And the football team was great too, but it was one of those things where it gave a lot of kids the opportunity to play at the Division I platform.
Locally, yeah.
Yeah, so I think as a whole it was the right move, and truth be told, I think I played in front of more people at Millard West.
Okay, so you went to Millard West?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's one of those things where people would complain, and I was like, well, where are the fans? But no, it was a great experience. I played for 3 years, battled some hamstring injuries, but definitely it's a blessing when you get a couple more years to play after high school.
Yeah, it's amazing to see what you've learned from sports, especially at a D1. Yeah. They were D2 at the time,
D2,
I guess.
Yep.
Okay. How that translates into business, the principles that you learned there probably growing up and then in college, and how you applied them to your State Farm business. You're an agent, right?
Correct.
At State Farm.
So in State Farm, it's unique because a lot of people don't quite understand how that dynamic works, whether you're employed. So it's very much kind of almost like being chosen to own a franchise.
Okay. So you have to apply for it. You have to interview for it. You have to.
It's like basically a year-long dating phase.
Oh, wow.
And they really want to know who you are as a person.
I appreciate that.
And that's
rather than just throwing somebody in there.
Yeah.
It doesn't fit the culture, doesn't fit the vision or the mission of the company.
Which is huge, because there's a lot of other companies that if you've got your licensing and you're willing to take the risk, they'll let you, but you see the turnover.
Sure.
Where State Farm has, you're in the 80% placement. So and the tenure is typically, an agent is a 35-year tenure.
Okay.
So they're looking for people that are going to become pillars in the community.
They got some staying power.
Yes,
Yeah.
and that have that connection with people. And I think that's definitely what makes it unique from that standpoint.
Yeah. Back to either or.
Yeah.
Now that we're on working out, let's talk about. So, are you a big cardio guy or a big weights guy?
So I'm a weights guy.
Okay.
When it comes to cardio, my wife gave me the biggest cheat code ever. So we've got one of those little Peloton treads.
Yes.
And she was showing me these outputs, right? So your output is the combination between your incline and how fast you were going.
Yep.
And I'm doing these hit runs, right? So quick intervals.
Right. Interval training.
And I'm dying. And she's sending me these outputs, and I'm like, "There's no way. What are you doing?" And she's like, "Oh, I've just been doing these hikes."
Right.
So it's low impact on your body. You never break more than a hard power walk, and you get off that thing and you're just drenched. So that's kind of been my new little cheat code.
So the treadmill.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So you're moving a little bit away from the weights and moving more to that.
I have been, especially with kids, but it's one of those things where I've got ambitions to get back to moving some weight again. But
okay.
For right now,
it comes and goes.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get my hikes in.
Let's go another one. Let's go. Let's go golf or pickleball.
Ooh, pickleball.
Really?
Yes.
100%?
100%. Well, and it's just because
I thought all insurance agents were golfers. I mean, we're going to these golfing events about once every week, once every other week.
It's unfortunate. It's been one of those learning moments too, where I'm going to make sure that my kids know how to do it at least somewhat. But I never did it growing up, and then my initial career took me to basically just being, focused on just career and then family. So I didn't really ever have the breathing room to do it, and now I'm, in my mid-30s and struggling to figure it out.
Right.
So I'm chasing a moving target.
And I don't know if you'll ever be able to figure out. For me, the more golf I play, the worse I get.
Yeah.
Now pickleball. I grew up playing tennis.
Yes.
But what I learned early on is that, the topspin doesn't necessarily translate unless you got a good racket.
For sure.
And you know what you're doing. But I enjoy pickleball as well. But so what level are we at here with pickle?
We still have room to grow. My neighbor across the street, he played college tennis and is trying to do it almost like semi-pro or pro.
Pickleball, okay.
Yeah, and
okay.
It's incredible to watch him. But no, I think it's fun because regardless of your skill set or athleticism or whatever, you can pick it up and hit it back and forth.
Yep.
And we do it. We've got a little lake trip every summer where the kids get involved. And
that takes me to my next question. Yeah. Hunter, Fisher.
Ooh.
Neither.
That's tough.
Oh, really? They're right up there?
Yeah.
Neck and neck?
Yep. Not as much. I'd probably lean towards fishing.
Okay.
But when it comes to, I love cooking. So if somebody had bags of deer and you've got some loins or some roast that you want me to make some jerky out of, I'm your guy.
Tear that up, huh? In the making part of it and the eating part of it, I'm
100%.
Sure. Okay, so you're more of a fisherman.
Yeah,
okay.
It's relaxing.
I get it. Let's go a couple more. These will go into, so we'll go either or. You personally, let's go, and I don't know how it works on your insurance side, but in the healthcare, as your deductible goes up, your premium goes down.
Yep.
So are you a high deductible, low premium guy as it relates to State Farm, property?
Yep.
Is it the same principle applies?
Same ratio, yeah, or same concept. It's, deductible is a fancy word for skin in the game.
Right.
So obviously the more skin in the game you have, your premiums are going to go down.
Right.
I think that's a unique question, and everyone's story is different. As far as, I lean towards, on the homeowner's policy, I lean towards, having that good percentage deductible, that 1%. Now with the auto, I don't see a lot of leeway on hey, if I've got more skin in the game.
Sure.
So I'm kind of just hey, don't overthink this. Let's just go with the $500 deductible.
Okay, keep it simple.
Yeah,
I get it. So you're more of a full coverage guy or a liability guy on your cars?
Now so if you've got a vehicle that you've got, any type of significant investment, you need to have that full coverage.
Okay.
Now if you've got, hey, I drive a $50,000 car and you can get a car accident and pull $50K out more and buy another one, you can decide to self-insure. But
makes sense.
I think the tipping point though is when the car starts getting a little bit older, and then you have to decide, hey, where are we at? Is it worth having the full coverage because it's only worth a couple grand?
Right.
That's a conversation we have a lot.
Before we get into your story, I'd like to share with you my story as it relates to insurance.
Yeah.
So we've had insurance with the same company for the last 25 years until recently.
Okay.
It seems like rates kept going up, and we'll get into this a little bit later.
Yeah.
So I came to our insurance agent and said, what can we do about this? What changes can we make? And he said, well, we can tweak this or tweak that, but really it's not going to make a big difference in the amount of premium you're paying every month.
Yeah.
Until I contacted State Farm. So once I contacted State Farm, they gave me this quote. I went back to my guy. He said, what can you do can you bring my rates down? He said, no, we can't do anything about it. Our State Farm quote was almost half of what we've been paying. Wow. And this has been paying for the last 25 years, just writing checks, every month. I didn't even know that was even a thing. I just thought, if our insurance is this much here, it's going to be that much here, no matter what company we go with. But that's not true.
Correct.
Is that accurate?
That's accurate, yep.
How can that be accurate? How can that be true?
So the big thing is a lot of times, especially when it's tied in through escrow, people just don't, like you said, you don't even think about it, right? It just comes out with your mortgage payment.
Exactly.
And or it gets confusing because you obviously have taxes bundled in there too. But what's been unique is obviously Nebraska is becoming increasingly one of the most riskiest places to insure.
Okay.
We have concentrated population, and then we have these storm cells that come through.
Okay.
It used to be just the coast.
Yeah,
right?
we got the coast, and then we're right.
Yeah.
Really.
And so Nebraska's right in there in the mix.
Has it always been that way, or is that more recently?
It's more recent, yeah.
Okay.
So I'd say over the past 10 years, you're seeing a consistent trend. It peaked, and then it kind of dipped, and now it's peaking again as far as consistency on hail damage and wind and tornadoes. But what's happening in the industry, especially in 2024, was the state's record for insurance claim payout. That's industry-wide, so not just State Farm, all the carriers. So when you set a bar like that, you've got a lot of carriers that are having to figure out, how do we manage this?
Sure.
You've got three major levers. You've got your premium that you can increase.
Okay.
You've got your quality of your product, right? So how much
lesser coverage?
Correct. Yeah. Okay. How much are we going to cover the roof?
So when we looked at ours, it was apples and apples.
Yep.
For half of it. Yes. For half the price.
And then the final thing is going to be your deductible. So those are the major leverage, and so all these carriers are trying to figure it out. Now in the broker world, they've always said, "Hey, we can shop the market. We can find you the best price." So they've always led with price. It was the thing that they stood on.
Yeah.
I would say to the degree of where they overlook the quality of the product.
Okay.
Now that being said, some of the best carriers in the broker world, like Nationwide and stuff, they've been kind of secretly bowing out of doing insurance in Nebraska.
Okay.
And so that's kind of made it more challenging. And they're a great company in the broker world. So then you're kind of left with what's left. Now, a lot of those other carriers are having to figure out how do they pay for all these claims? And the simple way to put it, it's a little more complicated than this, is they're basically having to borrow money to pay for their claims.
Okay.
So they might not have as much market. So State Farm is a 100-year company. We're mutually owned. So we're not managed by a board of directors that's looking at what's our quarterly earnings report.
Is that unique to State Farm, or is the higher players are similar?
Nope. Yeah.
In their structure.
Nope. So like Geico, they're a publicly traded company.
Okay.
Progressive, same deal.
Okay.
So if they have a bad earnings report, what are they going to do?
Right.
They have to find it some way, right? You've got shareholders that want answers.
Right.
Where State Farm, as policyholders, you are an owner, and so our leading light has always been the client. And so when you're a 100-year company, you also have 100 years of data. I feel like we're the largest home and auto producer in the country.
Okay.
So you've got a lot of data to be able to rate risk to cost.
Okay. They got this down to a science.
It's insane. Now, what's been unique is we've always been priced well.
Okay.
Accurate for the state. Now, you had a lot of other carriers that came in really low, and these brokers bought up a bunch of stuff. Now, these claims happening, these guys are paying all this stuff out, and they're sitting there and they're hiking rate up. State Farm, we've taken rate, but we haven't had to take rate like these other carriers to recoup their losses.
Right.
So it's been unique because from a pricing standpoint, people are like, wait, how's State Farm looking so good?
Right.
It's because of that.
Makes sense. So is it all right if we rewrite your tagline?
Yeah. And
like a good neighbor, State Farm may save you a boatload of money on your premium. Because they did me. And this is not a paid advertisement. I was blown away. Number one, that the competitor was not able to do anything about our rates. And then you guys come in and almost cut it in half. And like, what a breath of fresh air. So thank you.
For sure. Yeah, no, absolutely.
That's what we do.
Thanks for
I mean,
joining,
do you hear that story repetitively?
It's been.
That's what Mason just told me.
It's been a blessing, and I think the other thing is a lot of carriers, especially in the broker world, they're having a hard time finding good placement or good companies that have integrity, that pay their claims,
Sure.
do all that. So then it's like you could be paying a lot for bad quality, and that's what I love about State Farm is that there's no wavering in the integrity of the company and the quality of the product.
Right.
So I think it's going to be harder and harder for people in the state of Nebraska to find a not only good company, but find that at an affordable rate.
So that takes me into the next segment, which is your story. So
Yeah.
that was my story as it relates to insurance and State Farm. Your story takes me to the question of why insurance for you. Number one, why would you go the insurance route? Why, what's the desire? Where did that come from?
Yeah.
And number two, why State Farm? And I think you've already alluded to that.
For sure. No, great questions. I appreciate you giving me the platform to share.
Sure.
So my background, actually, I got on in the retail management space and did a couple years as an assistant manager with Target.
That's what you were telling me, okay.
And then got the opportunity to be a store director at a young age, and I ran the Target in Lincoln on 48th and O for 5 years. And then got the big super Target on 180th and Center for 3.
Ouch.
And thought, hey, I'm finally home. I'm not commuting anymore and doing all of that. And it's such an amazing experience, right? You'll learn a ton. And you get
at a young age, right? I mean,
Target gives you the opportunity to make mistakes on their dollar, basically. Wow. But at the end of it, you're really tied to the building. Nights, weekends, holidays, and at the time, we were having a young family. And it was unique timing because right before COVID happened and the world shut down, I had already kind of mentally realized, hey, I need to leave before I can figure out what I want to do next. It's too much is moving on, so made the tough decision.
So we're in 2019-ish.
Yeah. So early 2020.
Okay.
Because that COVID stuff happened there in March.
Right.
And it was super surreal because I was like, hey, I need to leave. I don't know what I want to do next, but I have to stop. And so I made the tough decision just to quit, and my wife's.
I was going to say your wife was.
Yeah.
How'd that go?
And so and I knew if I looped her in too much before making the decision, there could be some back and forth. So made the tough decision, and then it was unique timing because then basically the world shut down, right? In March. So. I'm sitting there at that point. I'm like, hey, what's next, right? You got these skill sets. I wanted to, I could work for somebody. Do I want to be an entrepreneur? Do I want to be a business owner? What does that look like? And it was unique because the territory sales leader here, she is kind of the liaison between the agent owner and corporate.
Okay.
She's also heavily involved
at State Farm.
Correct.
Not at okay.
She's also heavily involved in choosing who the next agents are going to be, and they only have predetermined spots, and so you basically have to have an agent that typically dies or retires to create that opportunity. Wow. And I got a LinkedIn message from her saying, "Hey, I shopped at Target and heard that you had left Target. We've seen success in people with your skill set that can translate into this.
Sure.
Would you like to meet for coffee?" No, I'm good. Like, I don't want to have anything to do with it. I don't quite understand the industry. And ended up just taking her up on it and sat down. And I was initially so amazed with her vulnerability.
Okay.
And who she was as a person. She was one of the first females to be an agent here in Omaha, and you could kind of see what she was trying to do. And she explaining State Farm and all of that. And I remember coming home and doing that zombie walk that everyone did during COVID, where you're just kind of roaming the neighborhood. Yeah. And we're on a walk, and I look over at my wife, and I was like, "Hey, I've been doing a lot of thinking about this. I think this is something I want to do." And she looked at me and she said, "You don't know anything about insurance."
Right. And you're right.
Yeah.
I don't.
I don't.
However.
But I was like, at this point, we had been kind of started the dating phase. And so they have this great career understanding platform where they really want you to know what it is. And they want to know you. And I immediately, you could taste the integrity of the company. And it was something that they were unwavering integrity. And so for me
Was it from her?
No, it was
from their product.
So their process of kind of the onboarding,
okay.
And then working with her, and then they assign somebody to you to really get a pulse on who and what it is.
Sure.
But when you see this history that's kind of woven through American history over 100 years and what they stand for and how they are, you don't become the biggest home and auto producer by screwing people over.
Correct.
And so that to me was really intriguing. And then how State Farm goes about helping people. And it was unique timing because in May, when I made my final decision, my father passed. And one of the other big products... Unexpectedly. And one of the big products that we do sell is life insurance. And I got to see firsthand what life insurance does and how it helps people. And so for me, it was kind of one of those things where I'm a big believer in it almost picked me, kind of like Target.
So back to your father.
Yeah.
So he did have life insurance or did not?
He did, yeah.
Okay, thankfully he did.
And it was the life insurance component of helping, that helped, a lot of the things that we transitioned through and helping my mom and all that. But it was one of those things where I'm like, those are tough conversations, but it's also about doing it right.
Right.
I was like, if the idea of sitting down with people, getting to know them, setting up, their simple things they're home and out of, I can protect your stuff, but I can also talk to you about something that might not be as fun, but it's or if not more important.
Correct.
And so for me, it was one of those like, wow, I get the opportunity to be a business owner. I get to do this my way. I get to make an impact in my community and ultimately help people if it's done right.
Right. Checking a lot of boxes.
Checked a lot of boxes. And it's kind of like, I'm a big believer that when I pray, I don't pray for things. I pray to have clarity. And when you see that opportunity in front of your face.
Say it again. Hold on. That'll stick. That'll preach.
No.
When you pray, you don't pray for opportunities. You know the opportunities are coming. You just pray for God to guide you through those opportunities.
Get out of my own way.
Yeah.
It's there.
Right.
I'm just not seeing it.
Correct.
And I think that's the power of realizing that it's there, that it's not something external that's going to help you. You just got to get out of your own way.
Right.
And so I feel like that was one of those powerful moments of like, wow, this does hit a lot of boxes, and I'll figure out the ins and outs of what the insurance product is and how it supports people. But for me, I wanted to believe in what it was.
Right.
And from there, then it kind of goes.
So basically, you started it from scratch.
Yep.
Came from an idea or a thought or an introduction to that lady. Yep. And then how did you ultimately build your client base? Because you've been doing it for how long?
So started my 4th year here, May 1st.
Okay. Yep. How did you go from 0 to wherever you're at right now in terms of your clients or what do you call them, customers?
Yep.
Or okay.
Clients, customers, however you want to think of it.
Yeah.
But what's unique about State Farm is if you do get selected, some start scratch where you have no clientele. But in my situation, they gift you a small portion of a previous book of business.
Okay.
So it's not an amazing amount of
right.
clients,
It gets you
but it
off
allows
and
you,
running.
Yeah, it allows you to keep your lights on and pay some team.
That helps.
But for me, when it went about clients, and this is also I've continued to reinforce as far as I've been going. Omaha's a big small town.
Sure.
And when you start out in that, it's really intimidating because you're like, hey, how do I get in? How do I meet people? How do I network? How do we do things like this? But I knew if I got out and I started, reaching out to friends, family, that it would kind of start to snowball.
Right.
And then from there, my clientele and all my new clients that I've brought on over the last couple of years have all been a referral based. So you do a good job with one person, now all of a sudden they talk to their cousin,
Absolutely.
they talk to their uncle, they talk to their friend.
Most efficient and effective way to build whether it's a practice or an insurance agency.
Yeah, and so that was my leading. It sounds cheesy, but it's like, hey, if you're a good dude,
right,
a lot comes from that.
Right.
And I think that's what's been fun about doing this in Omaha is they always said, even when you started on, that your book of business will end up reflecting who you are.
Right.
Your clients are going to be, similar values, similar personality types. And it's been really, I'd say definitely these last 2 years, it's really transcended into that.
That's awesome.
Which is a much more rewarding experience as opposed to just quick transactional, hey, we've got cheap auto insurance,
right,
as opposed to, hey, I know you, your family.
Relationship driven.
Yeah. And
that's
then from
awesome.
there, that's where it goes.
So ultimately, what you're saying is your wife got on board.
It took her a little bit.
Nothing
Trust
wrong with
me, those
that.
first couple of years, we're like, are we going to be able to do this?
So tell us a little bit about your team.
Yeah.
I've seen that you have a little bit of a team.
Yeah.
Talk to us about them and how they've helped you get from conception to where you are now.
For sure, and I think obviously, every business owner knows this. People is everything.
Right.
And finding that right team is huge. And my first year, I had a little bit of ups and downs and turbulence and trying to find that right team.
We all do. Yeah.
And I'm very blessed now to say that I've got 2 people that I really enjoy. The foundational one is an office manager.
Oh, that helps.
And she's great. She's got experience. But I think the big thing that I was looking for, especially after going through some turnover with team, was making sure that we aligned on vision, concept.
Sure.
How do we treat clients? How do we prioritize all of that stuff? And honestly, how to have tough conversations.
Was that hard for you to find?
It was.
Somebody that aligns with your operating system?
And but it's such a blessing when you do find it.
Absolutely. It's like a breath of fresh air.
Oh my God. And there's the conversations we have. But no, it's been great. So she's my office manager, so she heads up kind of more of the service aspect of it. She'll be the first line to answer the phones. But both my guys, they're both fully licensed, so they can do everything.
Awesome.
And now I just last year hired another that's a little bit more focused on more of the kind of outbound sales calls, supporting clients when requests come in. But when you're a small office too, it's also nice to have great utility players.
Sure.
And Jordan's spectacular at being a team player. When he's needed to help with clients, when we get an abundance of phone calls or whatever, he's always willing to
fill in the bucket.
Yeah,
somebody's got to be filling the bucket.
Get it going. But I think that's what's cool too is every office operates different.
Yeah.
You've got some offices in State Farm that are huge teams, and the agent's not as involved.
Right.
Where for me, my strategy is a little bit more of like I very much want to be involved with the clients
at this phase of the game, right?
Yeah, exactly, and especially as I'm working with clients and I'm trying to build that network of people saying, "Hey, go to Drew."
Right.
I want to be in the weeds, and I enjoy doing it. And I think that's a piece where everyone's got their different strategy.
Sure.
But yeah, at some point, I'd like to continue to grow because part of the business opportunity for me was I also wanted to give a platform to have a great work environment for people.
Sure.
And to have people that can decide, hey, I want to work for Drew forever and make a great living doing things the way we do them. And or on the flip side, hey, if you would like to pursue agency on your own, I think that's what's cool about State Farm. Provides a lot of opportunity, and a lot of current agents were former agent team members.
Sure, that's awesome. You're creating that culture in your office. Yeah. Talk to us a little bit about some principles, both personally and professionally. You talked to us a little bit about your prayer life, that you use to help guide you, to help get you from where you were to that initial conversation you had with that lady on LinkedIn to where you are today. Yep. What are some principles, some basic truths, some infrastructure, some underpinnings of Drew?
Yeah. I think a leading core value of mine is genuine.
Okay.
I have a hard time talking to anyone when you're not genuine,
right.
And especially in a world that's defined by more of kind of perceptual, salesy type people. It just doesn't.
With
taste
social
good.
media.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think that's a leading light for me. I definitely feel like a huge aspect of a family needs to be always front and foremost.
Sure.
That's what we're doing this for. But yeah, I think the core values of being genuine. I think the other thing is leading with vulnerability. We're all human,
right?
So being able to to kind of put that out there. And
what does that look like?
So I think for me, it's just sharing and being willing to talk about. Same thing of especially when you're talking about tough things with whether it's life insurance and it's easy to kind of put up your guard but no, I want to share my story about things that we went through personally or things that I can relate to with losing my dad at a young age and things like that. I think is huge.
So along those lines, I did talk to Mason about you.
Yeah.
And that was some of the first things we talked about. You were vulnerable with him, and he felt a connection because of that vulnerability.
Wow.
And it was pertaining to having children.
Yeah.
Can we talk about it?
Yeah, for sure.
We're here. This is our podcast.
Yeah,
we can do what we want.
I love it. No, and I'm assuming he's probably alluding to some fertility.
Yes.
Yeah. And that I think especially culturally, men are taught to not talk about your feelings and stuff. And I think it's a stronger man to take and to talk about those things.
Sure.
And especially when it comes to stuff like fertility. But no, it was super neat to talk to him and kind of share our journey that that we went to, and also open the door for resources.
Right.
Because when you walk through something, it's not fun when you're doing it.
Right.
But if you take that opportunity to learn from it, all of a sudden, you down the road could become a blessing for somebody.
He's married to a professional athlete.
Yeah.
Got married and she was 30-some when they got married. Having kids was always a desire of her heart, but I mean, they weren't able to, and then they were.
Boom.
I don't know what your story is.
No, it's funny. So our first was natural, and then I think it was a combination of we were both working full-time corporate jobs.
Yes.
I was commuting. It's crazy what stress and anxiety can do to the human body.
Physical stress, chemical stress, and emotional stress. That combination, stress causes everything.
Oh, it's insane.
Physical, chemical, and emotional.
Yeah, I mean, and it's wild to think about. But we ended up, we were at a position where my wife was working for a company that had some really good fertility benefits.
Okay.
And so we decided to pursue the IVF route, right? The other options could lead to multiples, and the doctor's like, well, you could just terminate some. That's not an option for us.
Right.
So we decided to go the safe route, and we wanted, a child, and kind of crazy because we ended up actually losing a baby through that process. But then kind of crazy, we ended up said, hey, let's just keep going. And we had my son.
Okay.
Which again, he was born kind of right around the time I decided to leave Target.
Is he a junior?
Yeah, no, he's got his own name. But
what's his name?
It's Kai.
Okay.
But yeah, he was huge blessing, and then it's kind of crazy because then we're in the midst of COVID, and then all of a sudden my wife, my son's I think quite right around a year, and she's still breastfeeding at the time, and so she's like, I didn't even think I could get pregnant, and sure enough, our third was completely natural.
That's awesome.
So it's a wild journey, but yeah, when you're on that side of it, it's tough. But yeah, to your point, I think that's what's special about when you get the chance to meet with people and talk about important things like.
And you would be surprised how many people are going through I mean, there's nothing new under the sun.
No.
Just different combinations of the same old stuff.
Yes. Yeah, and that's how you build those connections and realize that you're not crazy, you're not alone.
Right.
There's a lot of people dealing with everything.
We have more in common than we do, and we're different.
Yep.
All right. Now I want to move. I want to get out of that phase. That's enough about you now.
Yeah.
I want to talk about your product,
Okay.
which is the State Farm insurance. I want to talk about. Let's go back to on the spot.
Yeah.
So I'm going to give you. You can answer it with true, false, and then explain.
Okay.
Okay. Let's go with. If I file a storm-related insurance claim, will my premium go up? True or false?
That's tough. Potentially true.
Let's just say one claim. Potential could be true.
Could be true.
Okay.
Especially on the homeowners. Now, sometimes it's not, and I would say what impacts rates is more determined by the collective.
Okay.
Where when you see massive rate increases as opposed to an individual homeowner's rate increase, has to do more with the area being impacted by a lot.
General area like Omaha proper?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So if you experienced homeowners rate increase this last year, it probably had to do more with the fact that you lived in Nebraska during 2024 and all carriers had to take rate.
Right.
But what people need to worry about more isn't necessarily do you file the claim to get it. They need to worry more about eligibility. So think about how many claims you have in a short amount of time. So that's going to be
me as the homeowner,
correct.
Or you as the
So you as the homeowner, let's say you have multiple claims. Let's say 3, 4, 5 claims.
Whether it's car, home.
Nope, just home.
Okay.
Yep. So then that could put you in a precarious situation where the carrier might drop you.
Okay.
Now you have several claims and you're out in the market trying to find. So my big thing with homeowners is that strategy partner on when does it make sense to.
Sure.
And everyone's story is different.
Right.
But I really heavily encourage everyone in the state of Nebraska to really reserve those claims for when you're going to get a huge payout and you need the big support.
Okay.
Especially when you're with the beautiful country club of State Farm.
Okay.
You are going to be happy you have us when you need that. Now, filing a small water claim, let's say, might not be the most intelligent thing.
Okay.
Just
so what is what would one look like that? Yes, you should file a claim. We're talking obviously the tornadoes.
Yep.
Obviously hail.
Yep.
That impacts the roof.
Correct.
Siding, gutters, windows.
And that's a piece, wind and hail. That you nailed the two components,
and
that's what's the driving force. And I would really strongly encourage people to reserve that for that. Now, if you have a big fire in your home or something, but there's a great senior State Farm agent here in town, and her big thing is she's like, if I'm writing you a check and it doesn't have a comma in it, or excuse me, a comma with 2 digits in front of it, it should be a $10,000 claim or more.
Okay, it probably wasn't worth filing then.
Correct. Yep. Now I get there are people in a situation where they're saying, hey, $5,000 would derail me and I need this to get my house functional again.
Right.
then that's a conversation we can have.
Okay.
But I think that's a piece where eligibility concerns would probably be more of my leading light as opposed to the premium.
Yep, that makes sense. Thanks for explaining that. Let's go true or false.
Yep.
If I put a Class 4 impact-resistant shingle on my home, or a James Hardie, siding,
Yep.
will that affect my premium, my insurance rate? Will that have any impact on what I pay if I put a Class 4 or an impact-resistant shingle, or let's say a durable James Hardie siding on?
Love it. I'll separate the two.
Yes, please.
So the roof is let's put a Class 4, and this gets me so excited because
Let's hear it.
State Farm offers the industry-leading discount, which
Come
is
on.
a 30% discount on the total premium.
Okay.
So if you put a Class 4 impact-resistant roof on,
Yeah.
your premium's going to instantly drop by 30%.
Okay.
So that is a huge saving, and that
Do you market that to your customers, or do they know that?
We do not market it as a company, but it is a conversation that I have one-on-one.
Okay.
And it is a huge deal because there are other carriers that offer some form of discount, but it's not touching anything close to that. So the perfect scenario, right? You've got a Class 4 impact-resistant roof on. Your premium's lower than any premium's going to be anywhere, and you're insured by the best insurance company in the country.
Right.
It's a win-win across
So that's not a policy thing. That's an across the board, no matter what insurance policy you have with State Farm?
Nope, just the homeowners.
Yes.
Yep.
Correct.
So so it would be a 30, and then that doesn't drop off after 5 years.
Okay.
That just maintains.
Okay.
Now the siding.
Yes.
Yep, it's a great material, the James Hardie stuff.
Right.
I strongly encourage people to have it, especially in a wind and hail state. There is no discount associated with that.
Okay.
But it is a very intelligent thing to invest in.
Do you see that coming down the pipe at all?
Potentially.
Okay.
I think you got to think as a carrier, if your biggest risk is the hail and wind, what do you have out there?
Right.
And I think the big thing that if you're going to take that risk off the plate, State Farm's going to reward you for it.
Right.
But yeah.
Okay. Talk to me about this. This is a scenario. I have a wood shake roof.
Yep.
What is your policy or State Farm's policy on my insurance as it relates to having a wood roof or a wood shake roof? Where is that going? What's your interpretation of that? How does that impact my rates?
Wood shakes that's a tough deal.
Do you still see a lot of them?
No, and we don't see as many anymore. I feel like a lot of them have phased out over the past 10 years or have been replaced or upgraded. In some of the nicer, more affluent neighborhoods, they were kind of code for a while.
Okay.
But now they're finally allowing other people to do it. And if you can get out or away from a wood roof, if I'm a new homeowner and I'm buying a new home and it's got a wood shake roof, that's point number one of negotiations. And I would be you could do some easy math because you're not going to be eligible with State Farm.
Okay. If I have a wood shake roof, I'm not eligible with State Farm, period?
Correct.
Across the board, no matter what?
Yep.
Okay.
So it's one of those things where, and then the carriers that do in the broker space, it is very expensive insurance, and your deductibles are going to be so high, your depreciated value on your roof is going to be really high. So what you would actually get paid out in the event of a claim is going to basically be nothing.
So what should I do if I have a wood shake roof?
This is where clients should call you, and I would get a great roofer out to take a look at it and to see where is it at, and especially if you're a new homeowner buying that. Again, I feel like that would be a great negotiations point to say, hey, we gotta see this,
because that will impact your insurance premium.
Correct. Yep. And or just are you eligible with
moving forward?
With good companies.
Right.
It's kind of crazy.
Interesting. All right. And then let's go another scenario. I have a roof, asphalt roof, and it's 10 plus years old.
Yep.
Why should I get that inspected?
Same deal, deterioration and all of that, and it's a good opportunity to say, hey, is there anything functional that's wrong with it? Now, there's a lot of carriers that are going to, they call it ACV or actual cash value.
Yes.
That's a fancy word for depreciated value.
Okay.
Now, all carriers are deciding where this at. Some are ACV from jump. Some are doing it at 5 years, and some are at 10.
Okay.
And what that's doing is basically putting the replacement cost of what the company is going to pay you after your deductible, it's going to be very much reduced.
Okay.
So it's a great chance to have somebody come out, especially let's say, you're looking to shop at State Farm, your roof's a little bit older. Now we're still a replacement cost company.
Okay.
So regardless of the age of your roof.
So that doesn't apply to State Farm.
Correct. Yep. Now with Nebraska though, there's talks about what that can look like as far as, how are we going to move with that proceeding forward.
Yeah.
And there are pockets of Nebraska that are at 10 years. The roof does go to ACV for new business.
Okay.
But our stance right now for the predominant Omaha is that it's still going to be replacement cost regardless of the age of the roof.
Okay.
Now, if we have a couple more seasons like 2024, I could see them looking at that.
Right.
And I think as a state, we all need to understand the concept of skin in the game when it comes to insurance.
Yes.
How much are you going to have to invest personally to get a roof replaced?
Right.
It's gonna be higher, and especially if you want a quality product like State Farm. But yeah, so that's a really good question. But yes, I think that is a no-brainer to have somebody come out and take a look at it, and then at that point decide, hey, does it worth replacing on my own out of my own pocket? Let me get that Class 4. Let me get that 30% discount.
Okay. Thanks for explaining that. That helps. Just a couple more things. Let's say it storms tomorrow.
Yeah.
Can you take us through the process from wind, hail, whatever the storm is, through the process to work completed? What should that look like? What is your role in that? What is the contractor's role in that? What is the homeowner's responsibility in that?
100%.
Can you touch on that, please?
Yeah, no, I love that you asked that because I think that's the most important experience to understand when you're going into insurance and
Have you filed a claim before?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Okay, I filed one.
And it can
they
be
did
a
the
scary
work.
situation.
And I didn't want anything to do with it. I didn't care about it. I just knew that I trusted somebody. I knew a guy, and I trusted him. So here's my stuff. Just do what you do.
Do your part.
Yeah.
And it's the most important thing. And a lot of carriers try to make it apples to apples, and it's not. And you don't taste that until this time.
Right.
Right. You've been paying your premiums for years.
Correct.
And all of a sudden, wait, what do you mean? This is a horrible experience.
Right.
Right. And there are carriers that do pride themselves in trying to get out of claims.
And I didn't even know what kind of coverage we had.
Right.
What was
or
included?
What your deductible
or any of that. We were just...
You're in the weeds.
Right.
And then think about if you're with a carrier that you maybe purchased this product online. It was a progressive thing that you bought online. Now you're calling a 1-800 number, somebody that's not local, you have no idea.
Right.
You're like, what in the heck? So I would say from the perfect thing and what I love about being local here in the community and the clients that I know personally, let's say, I'm your insurance agent, you get hail, and you're like, Drew, I don't know. There's some neighbors that have some roofers up there.
Right.
What do I do?
Right.
And that's step one is to contact a reputable roofing company. And our policy from a compliance standpoint is that we always give three
recommended roofing companies that you work with. Okay.
Yep. And then from there, it's like, hey, have these guys. And the people that I refer, what I love is the fact that they have tons of integrity, right? I love working with you guys because of that.
The contractors you're referencing.
Correct,
okay.
yeah. And so that gives me the confidence that if the contractor comes out and tells the client, yes, you need a new roof, there's no question marks. Because they also understand how State Farm operates and how great we are.
Right.
So then it's like, hey, if I tell Drew, yep, go ahead and do this, my adjusters are going to come out, the adjusters come out and assess it, and then it's a no-brainer, right?
Okay, yep.
And the client is in a place where they're like, feel trusted, but now on the contrary, let's say the roofer says, oh yeah, you need a new roof, the adjuster comes out, it's a no-go,
right.
then the client's like, who's wrong, who's right? Well, I'm confused. So that's why I love, relationships with
And
guys
Drew,
like
I thought you referred this contractor to us, but does he really know what he's doing?
Yeah, exactly. So I think that's a huge point. But then from there, once I get the green light, from the contractor and the client saying, yes, we would like to move forward, we help you with the initial filing of the claim. And then from there, you'll be assigned an adjuster.
Okay.
And that adjuster is kind of the point person. They're the one that's going to be working directly with the contractor. They're going to be the ones that's going to be issuing the check.
The adjuster is a representative of State Farm?
Yep.
Are they a third party, or do they represent the homeowner?
So they represent the State Farm and the homeowner.
Okay.
Obviously, their client and State Farm, we keep our adjusters in-house. Obviously, we were pushed to the max here with this last 2024 across the country, which slowed claims times and all that stuff. But I like that we do have our people.
You were able to sustain that throughout this last season? That you had in-house adjusters? That's impressive.
So that was an important function of how we operate. But so to answer your question, then you get signed an adjuster, and they're your point person. Now, throughout the entire process, my clients, they know me and my office are still a liaison. They've got questions, they've got frustrations, they need help with something. We're still there to see that through.
Okay.
And obviously, it comes a little different when an agent's knocking on an adjuster's door saying, "Hey, what's the scoop? Why aren't you getting back to this person?" Now, we don't have to do that often. But it's a big company. There's a lot of moving parts, and sometimes we have to get involved and say, "Hey, where are we at with this?" And or sometimes it could just be a breakdown in communication. Let's say the contractor didn't get a form in that they needed to. So we can see that. But then to fruition, then the contractor puts on the new beautiful roof. Hopefully it's a class 4.
There you go.
You get the paperwork filled out. You get your.
It wouldn't make sense to do anything other than that.
You'd be nuts not to, especially in the state. And then from there, you get your complete replacement cost payout.
Sure. What role or responsibility does the contractor play in this whole process in detail?
No, I think that is, again, going back to finding the right type of local, great roofing companies like yourself.
Obviously, the license.
Yes. and to be able to be that, have that great relationship with the client, help communicate to them. I love it when we got contractors that can communicate with my office too and help keep us involved. But I think that's a huge component of finding the right people, and just like insurance, there's a bunch of bad eggs, but there's also a ton of really good ones.
Sure. Well, thanks for sharing your story.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Where do you see this thing going in the next 5 to 10? Your insurance?
Me personally?
Yeah.
For me, I'm just excited to keep the ball rolling. I think the longer
because you're in year 5, right?
Going in, just starting year 4.
Okay.
I'm excited to work with more and more clients that enjoy having a good relationship with their guy. Having that person in your corner that you can call and have conversations like this. And I'm excited to see this continue to happen as I continue to work with more people that say, "Hey, Drew's a good guy. He cares. Give him a call." I'd love to see more and more people I can help.
You come across as you're passionate about what you're doing, and you love what you're doing.
Absolutely.
So you can't but succeed. So thanks for taking the time. I really appreciate it.
I appreciate it, man.
That was fun.
Yeah, it was great.